For what feels like forever, the story of global oil has really been the story of American dominance. The shale revolution completely redrew the world's energy map. But what happens when that revolution starts to sputter? We're going to dig into whether the American oil boom is finally hitting a plateau. And from there, we'll pivot to the massive geopolitical gamble unfolding to the south and ask the big question, can Venezuela's huge but deeply troubled oil reserves actually fill the gap? All right, let's get into it.
So, get this, in late 2025, U.S. oil production didn't just break a record, it absolutely shattered it. We hit an all-time high of 13.3 million barrels a day. Just let that number sink in. It cemented America's position as a global energy superpower, no question about it. It was the peak of a decade of innovation and drilling that, honestly, almost nobody thought was even possible.
But this is where the real story starts, because underneath those incredible headline numbers, deep in the oil fields of Texas and New Mexico, a completely different picture is starting to emerge. It seems that the incredible machine that powered this whole boom is showing some serious signs of stress. The engine is redlining, and it raises a critical question for all of us. What's next?
Before we jump in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And check out the links in the description if you're looking for a real estate agent in your market or you need life insurance. My team and I can help you anywhere nationwide. All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at America's oil engine and the signs it's plateauing. Then, we'll tackle the Venezuelan wildcard. Third, we'll dig into this tale of two reserves, the 300 billion barrel question. After that, we get into the geology with the liquid asphalt problem. And finally, we'll zoom out to look at the unwritten energy future that all of this is creating.
So let's start right here at home, in the U.S. For more than a decade, shale has been this unbelievable story of explosive growth, right? It defied all the predictions. But, the laws of physics and geology, they always get the last word, and it looks like they're starting to catch up. So let's really examine the performance and the potential limits of this incredible machine.
Now, while that total U.S. production number is at a record high, it's absolutely crucial to understand where that oil is coming from. See, this isn't some kind of nationwide boom. It's almost entirely a Permian Basin boom. This one area, straddling West Texas and New Mexico, is the engine behind pretty much all of America's oil growth. The other players, like the Gulf of Mexico, they're steady, but they're mature. The Permian is where the action is, and now it's where the stress is. The health of the entire U.S. oil industry really boils down to the health of this one massive region.
To really get what's happening down there, we have to talk about something called the gas-oil ratio, or GOR. The best way to think about it is like a blood pressure reading for an oil well. When a well is new and healthy, you get a ton of oil and just a little bit of natural gas. But as the reservoir underground starts to lose pressure, more and more gas starts to bubble out with the oil. So a rapidly rising GOR is a huge red flag. It tells geologists the field is hitting its bubble point, and that an oil production decline is probably right around the corner.
And this isn't just some theory, right? The data coming out of the heart of the Permian tells a really clear story. Take Lea County in New Mexico, one of the best spots. It hit that bubble point in mid-2023, and boom, production flattened out. Look at Midland, Texas, the absolute core of the region. It hit the bubble point in March 2024, and now its production is actually dropping. Howard County has been in decline for months while its GOR just keeps climbing. You see the pattern? As the gas goes up, the oil flattens out, and then it starts to fall.
And what makes this worse is that efficiency is dropping. You're in a situation where companies have to drill faster and faster just to keep production from falling. All the best spots, the so-called Tier 1 acreage, have pretty much been drilled up. And you can see the market is reacting. Look at the rig counts. In Reeves County, the number of active rigs was cut by more than half in just 6 months, down from 29 to 13. Upton County, from 13 down to 7. Companies just aren't investing in new drilling like they used to, and that's a huge sign that the easy oil is gone.
This quote from industry analyst Mike Shellman, man, it really captures how serious this is. He's basically arguing that once these core areas are tapped out, all the industry's hopes are pinned on one last county, Eddy, New Mexico. But it's got its own set of huge problems. No water, tricky geology, you name it. His warning is just incredibly stark. The countries that have come to depend on the 3.7 million barrels a day of oil that we export from the Permian, they should be, in his own words, scared to death.
So this sets up the central dilemma, right? The engine of American energy independence, the shale miracle that completely changed the game, it's showing its age. The explosive growth is over, and a decline seems pretty much inevitable. This forces a massive question onto the world stage. If the U.S. can't provide the growth, then who can? Where is the world going to find the millions of barrels of oil it needs? And that question leads us directly south.
The global search for that next big oil source has morphed into this high-stakes geopolitical drama, and it's all centered on one nation with a very troubled past and a potentially enormous prize buried under its soil, Venezuela. We're now shifting gears from the geology of Texas to the murky world of naval blockades, special ops, and raw political power plays.
The story takes a really dramatic turn in early 2026. According to analysts and extensive reporting, the Trump administration, likely seeing the writing on the wall with domestic oil production, launched a direct and very aggressive operation aimed at Venezuela. The official line was about stabilizing the region and humanitarian concerns. But underneath it all was a pretty clear strategic goal: lock down a potential oil lifeline for the U.S. and the world.
And let's be clear, this wasn't just another round of sanctions or some diplomatic maneuver. These were direct military actions. A naval blockade was put in place. There were reports of a military operation with the goal of capturing President Maduro. The rhetoric from the administration was shockingly blunt, with talk about the U.S. directly running Venezuela's oil operations. The endgame couldn't have been clearer: get rid of the current government, install a friendly one, and throw the doors of the country's oil sector wide open for American companies.
An operation on this scale, it comes with a jaw-dropping price tag. The naval blockade alone was estimated to cost over $700 million just to get started, and the meter was running at about $9 million a day. That's not even counting the cost of the aircraft, the special forces, and all the logistics needed to keep it going. This was a massive financial and military gamble. But here's the thing: even if the military part of the plan worked, the real challenge was always going to be money. You need hundreds of billions in private investment to rebuild Venezuela's oil industry from the ground up. This quote from an investor talking to the Financial Times just says it all. The political climate was seen as so unpredictable, so volatile, that it created this incredible risk. No sane company is going to pour billions into a country where the entire foreign policy can change on a whim. The political risk was just off the charts. So this entire costly, complicated, and incredibly risky geopolitical gambit, it's all built on a single premise, a single, almost mythical number. It's the whole reason Venezuela is even part of this conversation. So now we have to dig into the analytical core of this thing and ask a simple question: is Venezuela's legendary oil wealth real, or is it basically a mirage?
I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times. It's been repeated endlessly in the news, thrown around by politicians, and used as the foundation for this idea that Venezuela is basically the next Saudi Arabia. It's a number so huge it almost doesn't sound real, promising this endless supply of oil just waiting for us.
303 billion barrels. That is the official number for Venezuela's proved oil reserves. It would make them #1 on the planet, bigger than Saudi Arabia, bigger than Canada, bigger than anybody. This is the number that's supposed to justify all the risk, all the cost, all the drama. But is it the right number?
And this slide, right here, shows you the whole conflict in a nutshell. On one side, you have the official government number, over 300 billion barrels. It's worth noting this number just exploded between 2005 and 2010 when OPEC countries were fighting over quotas. But on the other side, you've got the sober, independent analysis from Rystad Energy. Their number, for what's actually economically recoverable with today's tech and realistic oil prices, is just 27 billion barrels. I mean, that's less than 1/10 of the popular figure.
So how in the world do you explain a gap that massive? The difference between 300 billion barrels in the ground and 27 billion that you can actually get out and sell? It isn't really about politics or deception. The real answer is much more complicated, and it's buried a kilometer underground. It's a story of geology, chemistry, and cold, hard economics.
Before we continue, a quick reminder to like, share, and subscribe, and check out the links in the description if you're looking for a real estate agent in your market or you need life insurance. My team and I can help you anywhere nationwide.
Okay, time to get our hands dirty, geologically speaking. The whole reason for that huge difference in reserve numbers comes down to the unique and uniquely difficult nature of Venezuelan crude oil. This isn't the light, sweet stuff that just gushes out of the ground in West Texas. This is something else entirely. This quote from a geologist working on the Orinoco Belt oil is just perfect. Millions of years ago, you had these microbes in the ground that basically feasted on the oil. It's a process called biodegradation. They ate up all the good, light, valuable parts of the crude. And what they left behind is this heavy, sulfur-packed sludge. It's less like regular oil and more like, he says, liquid asphalt.
So this oil is, as one expert put it, chemically cursed. Let's just run down the list. It's so heavy it literally sinks in water.
It's packed with sulfur, which makes it corrosive. It's full of heavy metals like vanadium and nickel that are like poison to refineries. They destroy the expensive catalysts. It's so thick it's been described as cold molasses. On top of all those geological problems, the country's refineries are in ruins, operating at just 19% capacity, and Rystad estimates you need $183 billion just to get production back to a meaningful level.
The bottom line is that getting this stuff from the ground to a gas tank is a monumental challenge. First, you have to pump it out, often using steam. Then, just to get it to flow through a pipe, you have to either mix it with expensive lighter oils or run it through a multi-billion-dollar industrial plant called an upgrader. Then you have to move it through a decaying pipeline system, and finally, it has to go to one of the very few, very complex refineries in the world that can even handle it. Every single step is expensive and difficult.
And look, you don't have to take my word for it. In a reported meeting at the White House, the CEO of Exxon, Darren Woods, head of one of the biggest, most advanced oil companies on Earth, gave the bluntest assessment you could imagine. He said that Venezuela is, quote, uninvestable. He made it clear that without massive political and legal reforms and firm international guarantees, a company like his just wouldn't risk the hundreds of billions of dollars needed. When the CEO of Exxon calls a country with 300 billion barrels of oil uninvestable, you know the problems are deep. Okay, so let's pull the camera way back for the final piece of this puzzle. You've got a U.S. shale industry that's maturing, and a potential replacement in Venezuela that's a huge geological and political mess. But this is all happening in a world where the very idea of oil demand is being challenged by these powerful new forces. To understand the future, you have to look at the whole global picture.
The supply story we've been talking about, it's not happening in a vacuum, right? It's crashing up against these huge trends on the demand side. How fast are people really adopting electric vehicles? That's a huge wildcard. So is China's massive energy transition. Then you have global economic growth or a potential recession, which controls how much energy we need. And then there's just overall geopolitical stability. The future of oil is a battleground between all these powerful competing forces.
Now, you might be thinking, hey, what about the U.S. Gulf of Mexico? And that's a fair question. It's a solid, reliable producer, giving us about 2 million barrels of high-quality oil every day. But the expert consensus is really clear. While it's important, the Gulf is a mature region. It will never, ever be big enough to make up for the eventual decline of shale. The scales are just completely different. Shale's decline will be measured in millions of barrels. Any growth in the Gulf would be in the hundreds of thousands. It's a vital piece of the puzzle, but it's not the answer.
So if you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this. The two biggest hopes for the future of oil supply are both facing fundamental problems. The U.S. shale miracle is showing its age. It's entering a plateau where working harder doesn't mean more oil. And Venezuela, the supposed great replacement, is not a quick fix. It's a costly, decades-long project that needs hundreds of billions of dollars to overcome massive geological and political hurdles. The era of easy, cheap oil is over.
And that leaves us with one final and pretty heavy question. We are clearly leaving an era of relatively easy and cheap oil, an era that was powered almost entirely by the U.S. shale revolution. As we move into a new, more difficult and more complex energy world, the question is simple. Who is ultimately going to pay the price for the world's energy future? Will it be us at the gas pump? Will it be developing nations that are trying to grow? Or will the price be paid in global instability as countries start scrambling for what's left?
Before you go, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And check out the links in the description if you're looking for a real estate agent in your market or you need life insurance. My team and I can help you anywhere nationwide.